Your Holiness, thank you once again. We're delighted to be back here for the second day of the Generation Change dialogue and exchange with Your Holiness. This has been a wonderful and extraordinary partnership with the U.S. Institute of Peace, and we're very grateful to have the opportunity, particularly during very turbulent times globally, to be able to bring these 26 leaders from 12 countries. Over the past 4 years, it's been 106 leaders from 19 countries. And each of these youth leaders has chosen to become leaders for peace in their communities, despite a lot of personal challenges and working in environments of violent conflict often, and a lot of hate. The conversation we had with you yesterday was inspiring and stimulating. We had a lot of reflection and conversation yesterday afternoon after we met, and I think it generated a lot of new questions. Yesterday we focused on how to build more inclusive society. We focused yesterday on how to be inclusive, and we would like to, and you spoke a lot yesterday about the importance of education. So today, we would like to start with a focus on education. And I think, however, that there are a lot of additional questions that people would like to ask that's surfaced as a result. So I'd like to start first with, Can you just tell the youth leaders that... yeah, so Calden is prompting me to say that yesterday we had a lot of viewers on Facebook, about 900,000. So I want to once again welcome our viewers who are joining us via Facebook. We very much appreciate this opportunity to share with so many people the importance of the message that we're hearing from His Holiness, which is the importance of individual action to build peace, especially at a time of so much global turmoil. And that it takes, peace is very possible, but it takes action from all of us. So if we could start this morning's conversation, I would like to ask Dahlia to kick us off, and take it away, Dahlia.
Good morning, Your Holiness and everyone. In 2014, the Pacific protest, started in Venezuela, especially in the city where I live, the Táchira state. There, I saw young people being under persecution by the national police and other security bodies of the country. My brother was injured just to protest in a pacific way. I was under persecution, and I saw a 14-year-old boy killed by the national police. Therefore, in my country, now people hate each other, and I am trying to teach them to forgiveness. Therefore, I wonder if Your Holiness can share with me, how do you teach people for forgiveness after the conflict? Thank you.
Now, the contest will love you.
I think individual case, as yesterday, I think someone whose mother killed by someone, isn't it? So such case, that's an individual case, is the revenge, same way killing. They then continuously go like that. No use. But then, community level, national level, I think it's something different. So sometimes you see the demonstrations also express disagreement. That also relevant. I think in the last century, even you see Soviet Union, very powerful. Then from Poland, the Hunza. Oh, you see, he started also against their rule. And then repercussions horror. Oh, firstly, I think Poland. The Hunza, you see, I know very well know each other. He loves me, so I admire him. You see, sometimes you see the national level or community level, just a tolerance. Then other side feel weakness, stand firm against. That I think is sometimes relevant, good. Okay.
I'd like to ask Paula.
I'm from South Sudan, and we've been in the longest civil war, and we have very many of us have not known anything beyond conflict. And so I took it upon myself to educate the young generation so that we grow up learning about peace, so they can understand what conflict management is at a very young age. So I thought it's very, very important for the young people to grow up learning the importance of peace and how we can work together in unity. And the challenge that I'm facing currently is that the young are not trusted because there's this intergenerational gap, and the young generation are not believed to know what conflict is, to know what peace is. Most of the time we are told, you were just born the other day, so what do you know about what's happening? And I learned that you started at a very young age. At 15 years old, you went into leadership. So I just want to understand how were you able to connect between the older generation and your generation when you got into leadership position? Thank you.
Dharamsala college da hadu jojure 동 건다 알레 알레 선인 양도 직 소거래 야마로 봐 자상가 젠디가 알레 오 들어는데 네가 사주지 먼저한다 대중네 미크로 정도가 한테 디식이 가서 안 되죠 먼저한다 그냥 성우주 인식 직식이 알레 오케이 sorry I just inquire. So I heard this is some student from the local college attend here. Now they say tomorrow. Okay.
So Paula's question was about.
the Shimba dan Genbe Peru Tachi Gaza Mitogi Peru Parkechi 기 개인기 셴바 졸라 이지 마제베 개인기 아니야 지 간이 치트도스 딘디다 콘솔 직 셈슈 게야다 지 가서레 고치 제약이 직 셈슈 버려야 되는 데가 돌면 내가 지금 요새 말 디기다 지 겨울은 부시 냠용의 돈에 간데스니들 그 공로종에 돈
그러면 겸버즈 샤버리아
이지 마제기 지어로 지 르마제시 어디 간이 겨울은 지 테나 유나메나 간데라 신나이나스 계속 주시시에
I think that is more or less the normal way. Sometimes you see elder people, they know more thing, and they look younger people, children. So these, I think, time passes. I think gradually will change. I think like our sort of this kind of gathering. The youth, now, when you return your own place, and should be more active. Do not consider what elder people's attitude, but you yourself determined, and then gradually, you see elder people. Accept the youth, or say the active youth. I feel like that. But sometimes, that also is a human nature. The older people look down, younger people. Younger people look down sorry. Old people, useless people. That was working. I think like today in Japan, I think old people, they are sort of the number increasing. So worker, young people, now less and less. That's also one problem. So sometimes, yeah. So in any way, you see, if political election, then something different. Otherwise, you see, don't care about other sort of view. You yourself work hard. Then time passes. You see, the things become clearer and more sort of honest people, truthful people, sort of recognize or appreciate. Okay.
Your Holiness, I think sometimes the challenge is, especially when they're not only not taken seriously, but sometimes when youth leaders have pushback, have obstacles by their elders. And Idris, why don't you share your story?
Is it working? Yeah. First of all, it's a pleasure for me today to be in front of you and talking with you, Your Holiness. My name is Idris from Afghanistan. Your Holiness, when I was just...
Afghanistan.
Your Holiness, when I was just 4 years old, because of war, we were forced to migrate to Iran. And Iran, when I was just 7 years old, and I wanted to join a school as same as all over the world, because all the children join a school at 7 years old, my father registered my name and a school. But the problem was here that our relatives were saying that you have to not register the name of your son at the school because he has to work. He has to just have money for you, and he has to just pay money for the family. It's not necessary to join a school and study. But my father said, no, there is no problem. I will let my child to join a school and study. But after that, all of my relatives they disconnected from us, and they just said that we are not going to be to have more relation with you. And it was the reason that in 2016, I just came back, I left my family and came back to Afghanistan. And it was in 2018, I just established my own organization by the name of Tomorrow's Generation, in that we help girls and boys to join a school in rural places. Now, until now, we have just helped about 200 children to join a school. But one of the problems which we face, Your Holiness, is that when we enter to a village, which all the people of that village are practicing a wrong tradition, which we are not agree. They are all are all saying that girls and boys have to not join a school, especially girls. This is one the problem. My question from you, Your Holiness, is this: as a leader who has experienced in this difficult situation, what is your suggestion to me when I face to this kind of problem, when I face to a village which they are practicing a wrong tradition? What can I do? What is your suggestion for me, Your Holiness? Thank you.
Yesterday, I mentioned some religious tradition. You see, some distinction, male and female. I think Saudi Arabia, the female is some little discrimination. So these are. I think now we have to wait. Gradually, the time now changing. So more wider contact, then things gradually change. Otherwise, all of a sudden, it's a change, I think, several centuries tradition. Change, all of a sudden change, I think difficult. So, if we really want to big change, then you start a revolution. That also is difficult to say. So some of 1,000-year-old tradition is narrow-minded. It takes time. Difficult to change immediately. So one way, I think like this kind of meeting, more wider contact from time to time. And because Afghanistan, our neighbor, I think in the past, maybe around 1,000 years, some connection with Afghan people. And also, I think Iran. Persia. So some connection. But then sometimes religion, a little bit narrow-minded. It's difficult to criticize. While I myself, for example, I totally committed promotion of religious harmony. So some sort of like discrimination, so on. I think time passes, gradually can change. These mainly through education.
Tunde, you had a similar experience in terms of pushback from efforts. Why don't you share your story?
Good morning, Your Holiness. My name is Tunde Ogunyale from Nigeria.
No,
from
Nigeria.
Nigeria. And I bring greetings from Nigeria. Your Holiness, in my community, dispute, conflicts are daily experience in my community. And where I live, these conflicts are as a result of something as big as dispute over land ownership. And sometimes they are as a result of minor things like disagreement among the traditional leaders within the communities. And because of my education, I happen to live in different parts of Nigeria, and I can attest to the fact that this is actually there is similarity that is happening everywhere. It's actually the same. The narrative is similar. So because of this, as a Nigerian, as a concerned citizen, I decided to form an organization with the name Peace Space Initiative 2 years ago to promote peace and peaceful coexistence in Nigeria. And so we have ambassadors of peace across the 6 geopolitical zones in Nigeria. But sometimes we face resistance with the traditional leaders. You want to go to a particular community to help them, to bring them together, to promote values like understanding, alternative dispute resolution, mediation, and all. Some of them tend to resist. So that is my challenge. So, and I know that you also started as a young leader. And so I would like to know, Your Holiness, how were you able to overcome resistance to your work as a young leader, especially when you are connecting with traditional leaders or people who are older than you? Thank you.
네, 그 상황 그래.
그러나 나이지리안 제 위에 그러나기다 소고치도 수요 소도 소고주에디 즉 시대 대야다 아니 펜주 롤랭톤 시대 대야다 이 이비네 그 뒤에 디돌이야 다 동네 최고의 제주디 미르 겸바주 그 야라리아 사실 다디 그냥 모르지 지주시기 우리나 통계시에 뭐 수저가 도시에나 그리고 그 다디 동네들이야 이 수가 뭐셔야 돼 동네 같이서 제고 있나서
A difficult question. I think basically education, awareness, the reality. So take time. You have to work continuously. Then hopefully, in this kind of meeting, say in different places, sometimes in Arab area or in Africa, so and then more publicity. More awareness, but the isolated nation not much know the world situation. Or then just they look world their own area and narrow-minded, short-sighted. So these, I think, mainly ignorance, I feel. So the only method is to promote awareness. I think the Africa, as I mentioned earlier, yesterday, there's some kind of union of Northern Africa and Eastern Africa, Western Africa, if possible. Then you see more, more talks, more exchange. And that, I think, only way to help to open their mind. Otherwise, you see, something, 1,000-year-old, their tradition, something really stuck in their mind. Tibet case also, I think my thinking, one time, you see, my friend from Sikkim, you see, now he no longer. Now he, once we discussed something, then he told me, he expressed to me, oh, you're thinking very much advanced. So if the leaders thinking too much advanced and the people who supposed to lead
Follow us.
follow, you see, not sort of, because of that.
Ready to grasp.
Chakada
Catch.
Kuchidi, the sound of Shuji Doguchiachi, and Mimanzo dia Jimusumchuna, and Kangerda, Skaja Shenyo.
Yes. So this person told me that if the leader is too advanced, that the people cannot actually catch up with him, then that's going to be problematic.
So it is quite natural. But then time passes. The people actually by themselves seeing, you see, these change, some value, then no problem. Otherwise, sometimes it's something new idea. Now, for example, when I retired from political responsibility, or even you say, I think in 1962, or democratic draft democratic constitution because the made. In it is a one clause mentioned Dalai Lama's power can change by 2/3 of the parliamentarian representative. So at that time, many people, you see, against that, they asked me that because of the clause should remove. And then I insist, no. So like that. So, you see some new ideas, a new time, and new ideas is come. And then some old people, they do not realize the value. And then we continuously, you see, carry our work. That's the only way. Okay.
So sometimes our youth leaders have learned that education is by itself not enough. And I want to ask Achim to talk about that.
Thank you very much.
Your Holiness, I'm from Somalia.
Somalia.
I was born during a time when conflict already started. There was a conflict, a violence disorder. I went through the education system. It was great. The formal 2014, like I had this opportunity of becoming peace leader. I remember of taking like one of your books, Ancient Wisdom and the Modern World. Today we are talking about the ancient wisdom and the modern world. But they are those ones educated as well. And they are the ones who are making chaos, disorder, violence. They went through the same system. Then the importance, we talked about the importance, but what kind of miseducation do they have and the mindsets that they are following? Like, to me, I learned these systems and there will be no time that I will have a gun to do something, but they have these mindsets for them to do conflict, chaos. So these mindsets, what should we do to those ones and to transform their mindsets?
Yeah.
Somalia na kiero kuna kitu ne conflict singse de lansa bro but ko singse burana ya chalon che des inde da kuna ki na ro ya ji shide da le la che ya gi de je shi yus ani ngamo na de tempo no je jason na de ancient wisdom se de je genius na tinsa ki tu zo da zo ba ji xin kuna to yo de ine da di to la cha de zo ba ji le ba ta bo singe de zo yo ru mu do sa yo ru ya ji zo yo ta da sam yo ta ya kan ta je ka che ya res.
And Cherry, I want to ask you to chime in because you have a similar concern.
I feel a simple answer through dialogue, through talk. One way, I think that's a better way to educate older people. Now we are 21st century. the century-old sort of habit no longer relevant to today's world. So time always change. So you see, argue with these people. And still, not sort of they change their mind. And then, as I mentioned earlier, limited revolution. Some sort of demonstrations, I think, not violent way, peaceful,
Expression.
revolution, peaceful revolution. I think sometimes it is necessary. The movement by masses. And then the old people who their brain quite sort of hard they should feel, oh, now unless we change something, see, their own sort of position may face some danger. So sometimes necessary. I think my own experience when I was a young student, 7, 8 years old, when I start study, I have no interest study. Only interest is play. So my tutor always give one whip to show me threat. So because apparently there's more or less violence, but very sincere motivation. And to sometimes you see, to some people, that kind of method also you see necessary. So sometimes the people's movement, strictly non-violent way, some demonstrations. Okay, I feel that.
Jerry.
Hi. Hello, Your Holiness. Good morning.
One time I mentioned, you see, I met some Indian. Then I suggested a certain sort of right, you see, in order to get some certain right. See, you should organize demonstration, then I will join. I mentioned. So sometimes it is necessary. Strictly non-violent, not weapon. Just, you see, shouting. It's necessary. Huh?
I am Cherry. I came from Myanmar. Now I'm working in research field on peace process of Myanmar. I noted that some conflict linked with extremists, nationalists, ethnics, some religious activities. So in Myanmar, we are providing interfaith curriculums in primary and secondary education. How do you think religious terrorism? And some people, even though they got the qualified education, how they became terrorists? Yeah.
I don't know. I think you should carry more research work. As I mentioned yesterday, sometimes you see religious faith used for a positive way, good. But sometimes religious faith also, you see, creates more division. Then other, as a religious follower consider something negative. So here, 좀 전에 그런 게 감도 매번 나서야 돼 송셔야 돼 뺏게 심으르고.
So here it's very important for us to understand as followers of Buddhism, where the Buddha has actually said that there are many different mental dispositions of people. So accordingly, we need to approach.
And obviously, the Dharma wheel we call Chungo.
Sermons. The sermons that the Buddha gave.
The first one at Sanath, and the second one at Rajagiri, and third one,
Vaishali.
So these teaching, if you look, there are differences because of different audience. Buddha respect different mentality, so accordingly he taught. So we must recognize there's a different faith, different tradition. And Buddhists must accept Muslim brothers, sisters. No right to impose the Muslim should follow Buddhism. No right. Buddha himself give right. So then we are tiny follower. There's no right to impose or say your own faith. And particularly this moment, you see, it is very important to promote religious harmony. In that reality, according to that reality, we must respect different traditions, no matter how, or say the contradictory philosophy. No problem. So that I think generally, as I mentioned earlier, I think we should look human society more as a wider way, not sort of kasoda, one view. Then naturally there are each individual, because of their way of life, and also they also have some wider contact and more the information. So their way of thinking something different. So for religion, I think pluralism, very important. You cannot say my religion is best. You cannot say that. I never state Buddhism is best. No. As I think yesterday I mentioned. So I think Burmese Buddhist brothers, I think should understand the people who have some tradition of Muslim. We must respect. Any human society, different religious faith, very possible. So, we should think according to reality. Time pass, time already gone. Impose your own faith. This is my record. Okay. Next question.
Luisa.
Hello, Your Holiness. My name is Luisa. I'm from Colombia. I remember when I was a child, I lived in a constant fear because of my dad's job. He used to work in one of the most dangerous areas in Colombia. I was lucky because even if my dad faced many times the guerrilla group FARC, unfortunately, I could grow up with him. But I know many people that didn't have that opportunity to grow up with their parents. Right now, I'm working in order to bring people together to contribute to peace building in Colombia. So I'm working with victims, with young people, and also with former combatants. My question is that I feel that in this important moment on peace building, it's important to heal ourselves first. And I'm wondering, from your experience, what do you think is the best way, or what is your advice to educate ourselves in spirituality for a mental health, for a healthy mind, healthy heart, and healthy body?
가서
인규도 시대 중요하게 다시 제발로 당부 수수 나로네 지금 야보시니 가서 찾아다 잡으실 거예요. 그러 봤어. 일치해지 차고로 봤어. 그래. 인규도 이용 수수수 나로네 지금 셈게다 돼서 상야 대체동에 차고 들었어. 어디 차네 뭐랑 다시 계속 경우도 콜롬비아 인도 다시 살론체도 바베냠도 살론체 바바디나 내가 치스디 지금 고릴라 같은 군주 지금 오셔 가지고 여기 주ям도 봐도 치우지 뒤에 좀 간예시시 아니 유엔디인데 그때 그거 심바시라 요라요 말했어. 근데 인도 다시 가서 뭐라는 거네. 시리 돌아치 랭귀베 갑라 미시행 소 지금 수수 당부 야라다다 야고 차야 된다. 컨테스 랍시다고 해놨어.
I think that also one way. First, you yourself, you see, create peaceful mind and your whole way of life more peaceful way, and makes example to other. But another, I feel, to analyze the different sort of different way of life, and then analyze which is better. As we already sort of also the present world, a lot of crisis, mainly our own creation. So seeing that, then think how to change that. Then, as I mentioned earlier, education is the key factor. So not other way, or we should start some different education. No. Seeing the situation and a lot of drawbacks, right? Then raise the question why it happened, and further sort of investigate. Then from childhood, as I mentioned yesterday, you see the education, not only material value, but inner value. Like that. So firstly, we should know the problem. If the present situation continue, this problem will remain, and the population increasing, and the global warming also now increasing. So more problem happen. So then, firstly, I think we should show the problem. Then there's no other choice except you should do something. 말왜? 그 다스집에 상구적으로 설럽시한 된줄수가.
It's not enough just to say we should do.
견절 하더라도 야구지 가서도 상당 못 주시. 다티 아주 수트야 도면도가. 뜻들이야 디시스고 탑시 누가 면도가. 탑시 면다 그러셔. 탑시 이하나 다 직접으로.
No.
그러나 내가 가서 그래. 지 미심 투쟁에 되려 로좀 줘야로들이 그 속어르기 위해는.
So His Holiness is asking if there are any organizations which who actually help such people who have, who go through
special class or
a spiritual
something special. So I think organization or class, you see, to those young people who really disturb their mind. Then you see some experienced people, share their way of thinking, and then let them discuss.
Like trauma healing.
Then there's not much choice. Too much sort of disturbed mind. Then finally, violence. Violence, no use. More problem.
So maybe you could organize sessions with such people who have undergone traumatic experiences with the help of experts. And His Holiness was saying that we need to actually see and appreciate the problems first, and then see whether the problems could be can be overcome or not. If there is a way out of the problem, then we should actually work for that.
The church on the Chevy, yeah, took them some door. Genda, the Kasurbe, Condi, Yantan. That in a Gunjutan was to tea, Zao Karichua. The nation indeed Melso to a Dogamendo, and Gordon. That did the Tombeton and a Lamden Shank.
So, to put within the context of the teaching of the Buddha himself, the Buddha in his first sermon gave teaching on the Four Noble Truths. And so he started out with teaching on suffering, so to make us acknowledge the condition that we are in, so that we can actually see whether there is a cause of suffering or not. And if there is a cause of suffering, which he says it's the origin of suffering, as it's called, then you need to actually see whether that origin of suffering can be overcome or not. And therefore he taught that of what is known as a true cessation, whereby which is the state of overcoming the suffering that we have. And for that he taught the path, the true path. So in this way, the Buddha began by teaching on suffering, and then also showed the path out of that.
Like, I think, illness, unless the person, realize he got some illness, then they develop desire to take some medicine to cure. But the person feel, I have nothing wrong, perfect. It came no.
You can't do nothing. So in any situation, we must acknowledge what's the problem first in order to be able to overcome it.
I think in order to open human mind, I think problem is good. When we see problem, then open our mind. Then try to method to overcome that. Other hand, everything okay, very good. Then never make effort. Next.
Your Holiness, we've just discussed, the kind of education that helps one to do that kind of analysis, to have the personal healing that allows you to do that. Also, the challenges that a young leader faces, particularly if there's traditional resistance or elder resistance, and sometimes how education is not enough, and it can still lead to accepting violent ideologies. So I want to ask our youth leaders if that spurs any additional questions, having just covered all of those key challenges that you face. Dahlia?
Your Holiness, all the young leader, peace builder here are living in countries under conflict. By example, I am giving young people tools to fight for their own rights, but in a peaceful way. But at the same time, I have to deal each day with all the conflict around me. So I wonder if you can share with us or with me some advices or strategies to keep the peace in my mind, to keep doing my work as peace builder, keeping my mind in peace and my healthy hair and my body health. Thank you.
가서
진짜 뭐랑기 내가 집에 가서 쉬게 저를 때지 가서 간에 나한테 제가 갈 동네 시에디 시대 돈은 지단데 좀다 되게 했어. 이년다 뭐랑 대세디 고유난 코로나 나로라 그 뒤에 니만 다지 간에 냐냐 나나 내등에 시대리 저지 내가 지도 삼발라니 수수기 샘디 시대 지 냐자 가서 제도야게 답시도 다 갈롭 컨테나에 나스.
difficult to say. But this our meeting, one example, world, global level, a lot of problem. So we seeing these problem and demoralize. No. After seeing more sort of problems, then we develop what are the causes of this problem. Then whether there is way to overcome or change these causes, then make effort. If there is no way to tackle these causes, then I think alcohol, rest. That's not a human way. Whether there's creator or not, this brain is something very special. So in order to utilize this brain, we should face more problem. Then this brain becoming more active. So I think this is one example. There's a lot of problem. We never say, now no hope, or demoralize, not that way. Try to analyze what the causes and whether these causes can change or not. So we are making effort. Otherwise, I think we should pray through also according some sort of Indian tradition text mentioned, eventually whole galaxies burn.
Destroyed by fire.
So then, better to pray that end of world should come sooner than better. That also extreme. Now, at least you see the present world good, isn't it? Then some problem. We must think how to solve this problem. Utilize our intelligence and more realistic, not just hope. Analyze the causes. Then, accordingly, try or make effort. That's the way I feel.
Yeah, so if we can do this quickly, Tunde and Paula, short.
Thank you, Your Holiness.
Yes.
Thank you, Your Holiness. Your Holiness, you just mentioned the fact that sometimes peaceful demonstration is the best way to solve a problem. I agree, but then I have a challenge. Your Holiness, some time ago in Nigeria, something like that was done, especially in northeast Nigeria, Yola, Adamawa State. A peaceful demonstration was hijacked. And this thing, the protest was supposed to be peaceful. In fact, it was led by some religious leaders. At the end of the day, it turned out to be something worse. So I was wondering whether you have some word of advice for us on how to go about this so that peaceful demonstration will not be turned to something else, something unintended totally.
Something violent.
Violent.
창조했던 거예요. 근데 그래서 막 그게 주로 그 보지츠 내제제 내게 간다면서 뭐 그런 게 때문에 뭐 그런 게 통한 시대에 뭐 때문에 한 특징이 차지 아주 구조적인 세계 이래서 막 이게 뭐 그게 리그에서 시대 랭귀지게 시대가 내야 돼. 특징이 맞아야 그죠 같이 하는 거 같습니다.
And if I could interject, I would like to invite everybody to visit the U.S. Institute of Peace website, usip.org. We have a lot of training materials and something called the SNAP Guide that is very specific training and strategies for how to ensure that nonviolent action truly remains nonviolent, because there are a lot of specific strategies available. And if we could get Paula one more question before you answer.
Thank you so much, Your Holiness. This has been very good.
now 직접 시대듯이 고추인의 수고 나 시대랑 돈 내듯이.
Now that is, I think, the impatience. So although you see you start the right way, but then a lot of obstacles come. Then our patience lost. Then through impatience, frustration, then violence. So that, I think, in Tibet case, basically we always avoid violence. Any mission da soya mebche soso meradani.
Yes. So because Tibetans stick to nonviolence, and therefore when people actually protest against the regimes, instead of going forth to harm others, people actually burn themselves.
So that also, I think, desperate practice of nonviolence. You see, sacrifice their own life, burned. Such person certainly, you see, can do harm other, but restrain. And instead of harming other, self-burn. So, that means you so some rather was in love the Shingmarti.
So self-immolation, of course, attracts a lot of attention from people, and there's awareness raised of what's going on in some place. But here, you must not take to that His Holiness is advising you to go, commit self-immolation as such.
Okay, Your Holiness, as a young person, more often we approach very, very many issues, and sometimes we are not ready for the issues that we approach.
I want to give to myself. No, okay.
Yeah. So most oftenly we get into situations that are very, very tough for us as young people. And one thing I would like to know is if you have any experience or a time where you are overwhelmed because you're trying to solve an issue, if you can share that with us, and would like to know how you overcame certain issues, because most of us end up getting ourselves in situations where we are stuck and we don't know how to go, how to come out of such situations. So I would like to know from your experience when you get into situations that are very, very hard and you're overwhelmed. Thank you.
가서
Kanye Tan, Nizu, the Chebeka, Donlen, Chiun, do some balani, Jesusu, Semshu, Kazukina, Gabri Sim Kazore, Peugeot, Nizu, the Petikorachik, Chetavana, the Lake Kingis,
가르쳐줘.
Nizu, the Chick Kazore, Zatrabot, and the Chechen, the Taktash, Dromatovic, Nizukanyama, which tail to us. But the Dekabla, and Nichik, Semshu Chayas, or that in the Mayu, Chedu, Chik Tablam Drabo, Candice, Yarum Chiki, Yamno, Tony,
I usually feel the certain aim you are making effort. It is really analyze that sort of aim, something beneficial, something good, reasonable, then there is no way, because of that, no reason to demoralize. Make effort. And here also is related with altruism, well-being of other. Then that no matter how sort of difficult to achieve, but it's a very sort of reasonable. So then determined, like our own struggle. It's not easy. China, huge country, and militarily very powerful. We very small people, but our sort of effort. Firstly, we think benefit for both, not one-sided. So then, no matter how difficult it is, there is sufficient reason to keep our struggle. As a result, more and more Chinese now supporting. If we, right from the beginning, one-sided, then it's difficult to get support. Some Tibetan, the independence of Tibet, regardless of what Chinese feel, then difficult. So as yesterday I mentioned, we are not saying independence. We fully committed remain within the People's Republic of China, provided they must respect Tibetan culture, Tibetan knowledge. Eventually they themselves get immense benefit. So now last over 70 years, we carry that principle. So now more and more Chinese supporting us.
Your Holiness.
So then, self-confidence, our aim is something kasota kuina pembachi.
No, it's something which is beneficial to everyone.
So then, no matter how difficult it is, we must carry continuously our struggle, non-violent way. As I think yesterday I mentioned, firstly, ourselves should be truthful, honest. That's the basis of our determination. Your mind, little too much, clever or cunning. Ultimately, deep inside some selfish thing, then showing something nice to other, then very difficult to keep determination, isn't it? And then sometimes you see people through desperate use weapon.
Please have your tea and then we'll flip the group.
Yeah.
Have your tea and we'll flip the group.
The politics you call government.
Your Holiness, we just covered a lot of topics. And I think that one of the common themes that is coming up for good reason, given the challenges that these young leaders face, are questions of leadership, questions of personal resilience. You know, personal resilience. How do you stay? How do you keep the inner peace? And we would like to continue that conversation, that theme, with this next round of discussion. And I'd like to ask Naomi to kick us off for this session.
Tashidelek, Your Holiness. It's such a pleasure to meet you. Well, I grew up in a community. I'm Naomi from Nigeria. And I grew up in a community that has suffered violence. Okay, so right from when I was 3 years old, we have known violence. And then by the time I was 15, in high school, I decided to start reaching out to victims of insurgents caused by Boko Haram, a terrorist group in northern Nigeria, and caused by the Fulani herdsmen attacks, and also ethno-religious crisis. So there are so many displaced persons in my community. And my family, there were times we couldn't go to school because of 24 hours curfew. So I really, I came up with a team and started an organization to reach out to these victims and ensure they have access to quality education. This work sometimes has made me to engage with global leaders. And I really want to ask you, were there times, you know, because I read your biography fully, and I know you started at the age of 15, fully leading your people. Were there times you got bullied by older leaders, international leaders? Were there times you got bullied, and how were you able to, you know, go through it and still continue leading your people that are now, some of them are refugees over here in India? So how were you able to deal with bully and still come back? Because sometimes, like a few times I've gotten bullied and I just cry and then just go back. But then I really want to continue. So how were you able to do that? Thank you.
모라기 지르지거든데 아니 장주기 동해 포요래 그래서 막 뭐로 숨스네 가다 강해지잖아 수대비 로정하스레버가리아다 지금 장주고 그도 냐니게 루프 부직 슈게 되돌려 봐 지금 로체야 되게 소고시 주기 아니 소고디 통에 딱 지금 산행이 봉보를 다네시 기진하게 봉보다 딱니 이제 먹을 자와 용도 근데 모르지 자남도 로버가리아 아니 너무 중앙스네다 통계시 아니 수수 미리 우리나야 아니 직접 주요강에서나야 당내시 저불린 기지나기 공부다 때 두려나야 때참 먹지나요 이래서 봐 직접 수수 나는데로 어떻게 미수도 안 되고 근데 자기도 아니 모르지 고객이다 소냥용 통하지 그래서 그것도 세야가 수준이 또 많은데 간데서 나요.
Here, according to my own experience, some religious thinking, very helpful. So one of my prayer daily is, so long space remain, so long sentient beings suffering remain, I will remain in order to serve them. So that brings tremendous sort of willpower. So one lifetime, some problem here and there, it is very minor. We determined till you see the sentient being, or till even this world disappear, another world develop. So long the sentient being, you know, so long sentient beings suffering remain there, I will remain. So that brings tremendous sort of willpower. Then also one simple advice from one Nalanda master: when you face some problem, analyze whether that problem can overcome or not. If that problem can overcome, the possibility of overcome, then no need worry. Make effort. If the problem no way to overcome, then no use too much worry. I think these are of course, I'm not sort of trying to promote Buddhism. I'm Buddhist. So, according to my own experience, the altruism, or think more about others' well-being, that thinking, the strong sort of force to reduce self-centered attitude. Most of the emotion which disturb our mind, anger, fear, jealousy, now these related with self-centered attitude. So as a practitioner of altruism, the self-centered attitude much weak. So automatically, fear, anger, hatred, these things, very little. So these are, I think, immense benefit. Then yesterday, as I mentioned, quantum physics, nothing exists as appears. The all destructive emotion is based on appearances, not the reality. So these practice really very, very helpful to keep my mind more peaceful. Not because of that. Yes.
So it's not just enough to pray that, for peace of mind, but what you need to know is what actually disturbs your peace of mind, and then accordingly deal with it with the tools that can overcome it.
I think like physical illness, just your wish or no longer that illness is not much meaning. You must take medicine. Similarly, mental level, worry, sadness, just wish to no longer these things, not help. To investigate the causes. And cause, according to the Nalanda tradition, I love Nalanda tradition. Of course, I respect the Pali tradition. Burma, Sri Lanka, Cambodia, Thailand, all these countries follow of Pali tradition. So Pali tradition, foundation of Buddha Dharma, but much depend on faith, respect. Then Nalanda tradition, much sort of emphasis, reasoning. So I think yesterday I mentioned even Buddha's own word, through investigation, certain Buddha's teaching create contradiction. So we have right to reject that. So the Nalanda tradition always emphasis investigation. So that's very important. Just faith, God. So our mind then 베투스 가솔베게 쿰데베소지
그래서
가솔자
If we just pray, then we will not be able to use our mental ability to the extent that we can. So we just rely on the God.
So analytical meditation, why? And then automatically thinking, what's the causes, what's the condition, and further sort of investigation, whether there is that cause can reduce or not. So analytical meditation, why? That's very important. Me personally, that way of thinking always raised the question, why? Very useful. I think according to knowledge tradition, when Buddha, we met, if you see there's opportunity to meet Buddha says something, then our immediate reaction is, why? We never say, yes. No. That's good. You see, to utilize human intelligence further. So then, more investigation. The Buddha's teaching, first teaching, second, I already mentioned, first Dharma teaching, second Dharma teaching, third Dharma teaching, combined, then the sufficient reason how to change, how to transform our mind. So we can take these things, academic subject, should not consider as a Buddhist sort of practice. Okay.
Thank you. I'd like to ask Rebecca and then Bauer if they can contribute.
Your Holiness, I'm Rebecca. I was born in Sudan. And in 2010, I was internally displaced. I came to South Sudan. And in South Sudan, there are two different cultures, two different people who have different backgrounds. But there is no respect to diversity, there is no respect to culture. People are not respecting each other, people are fighting, ethnic conflict. At the same time, I visited a refugee camp and I expected everyone there, because they ran from war, I expected them to be peacefully. But at the same time, they are fighting, they are hating each other. And on the Tibetan culture, you became a leader at a very young age. And you are leading your people in exile. You are leading your people with different people. How did you, what are the teachings that you manage teaching your people to love each other with different culture, like with the Indians?
Karsa.
The Moran, Kesa the Sudan, the Sudan, the Logachaza, Sudan, Susu tribe, the Genki, you don't choose South Sudan, South Sudan, the Susu Kesa, the capture Rokas, and you get less of the capture the heart than our Lenny. The Moran somebody captured the heart, the journal or the test city with some missing Macadonia. You get now all the mitigated Susu Timsing Massage. It is about the temple of Pimi to Snangi and Pimiso, Jiki Penju, Chipti Chekas or Taxi Maps there to Delia, and in Lando Kalinagi, and how the Pavechito Chipuchi Jagana there, and Jagan Miri, Chizo Dinalia, Miri did a Lushum but already Yamnetia, Lando Candesnaginas.
Here, I think basically Buddha Dharma, Buddhism, I think immense influence for Tibetan community. Inside Tibet, as I already mentioned, number of Tibetan.
154 since 2000.
154 what called immolation. So that's, I think, clear example. They face tremendous suffering and physical suffering, mainly mental suffering. They cannot bear. But you see, they never use some harming other, just self-burn. But when we, you see, also the face desperate situation, then Tibetan also fought with Chinese soldier quite bravely. And early 1980s, you see, the Deng Xiaoping start also the connection, the contact Tibetan inside Tibet and outside Tibet. You see, allowed Tibetan come here. And from here also you see opportunity to go there, meet their relatives. So one old monk, so one occasion I met one old monk, and he told me stories about his own area, many monasteries destroyed by Chinese. So then he mentioned thousands of Chinese soldiers come. So finally, we lost. Then I asked, that's understandable. You see, the Chinese soldier are limitless. We Tibetan, even one die, reduce like that. The Chinese case, 1,000 die, not much effect. And then I asked him, if one Chinese, one Tibetan fight, and what kind of situation? Then that old monk, surprisingly, told me,
So this monk actually told His Holiness that if we were to fight one-on-one, then actually the Tibetans could easily crush the Chinese.
No.
Can easily scar the
That kind of mentality. And also 1950, I think 59, the Chinese military authority, you see, bring one Chinese division which have experience fought with American in Korea. So they bring that division in order to suppress Tibetan. So they themselves is a little bit sort of, I say they,
They felt fear.
Like that. So a Tibetan, anyway, I think, like Mongolian, traditionally, more warrior. Whenever opposition come, crush. And after Buddhism reached Tibet, then Tibetan become more compassionate, more peaceful. Now, number of Chinese also now appreciate Tibetan sort of basic nature, more violent, more non-violence, more compassionate. Then, here, as a handful of refugees, about 100 Kazare, 120,000 Tibetan refugees here. You see, right from the beginning. Firstly, of course, India is our spiritual home. Then secondly, our nature, more compassionate, non-violence, peaceful. So, no problem with Indian people. Very good relations. So Tibetan, not only in India, also a few thousand in Switzerland. The local people praising Tibetan, peaceful, hardworking. Then America also. In fact, you see, Pritzker, do you know Pritzker? One family member, she told me in Chicago area, they allocate or some, I think, some group of Tibetan refugees settled there. So that lady told me the very purpose of taking refugee, not just out of sort of concern their well-being, but their desire is to bring Tibetan community and their peaceful way of life, compassionate life, can spread neighboring Americans. And then similarly, in some area in India, the area,
Tribal area.
Tribal area. Once I have been there, some local leader told me, after Tibetan come for settlement, and then local people also becoming more hardworking. So they very much appreciate Tibetan sort of nature, peaceful, compassionate, hardworking. So like that. So Tibetan, generally speaking, I think over 1,000 years, is more compassionate, and meantime, hardworking. Like that. So these, I think, our cultural heritage, really. See, so that kind of nature. And now many Chinese very much appreciate Tibetan culture. The hardliner, narrow-minded, then they try to eliminate Tibetan unique cultural heritage, and including language. So they feel so long something unique about Tibet remain. They consider that the seed of Tibetan independence struggle. So they eliminate that, but impossible. Now, especially today, Tibetan culture in the West also, more and more people showing genuine interest among the scientists also. So therefore, the Tibetan culture or Tibetan kumshi, way of life, is more and more people now appreciate something positive. So that also now helpful to those hardliner Chinese communists is who try to eliminate Tibetan unique cultural heritage, including language. So now they feel the past over 70 years, their policy, many of the top leaders, they realize their policy suppression become more unrealistic and counterproductive. Now they are thinking or discussing more realistic approach about Tibet.
So Your Holiness, Rebecca's question about how people who are displaced as individuals and as communities is a really important one in a world where 70 million people are now forced from their homes from violent conflict. This is a critical issue for our youth leaders.
Right.
Because a lot of them come from countries who are the big contributors to that 70 million. So I'd like to ask both Ferris and Sebastian if we could take both of their comments, because they both are dealing with this issue of how to maintain resilience as individuals and as a community in the face of displacement.
Hello, Your Highness. I'm Firas from Syria, and once one of the most important people for me said to me that the whole is more greater than the sum of all the pieces. So I think this is like how everybody of us, like we are more than each one individual story in our life. I grew up in Damascus, Syria, and I left in 2015. I left my home, my people, my family, my friends, and my lovely city, Damascus. That was something that takes me like a decision that I took, which is I consider like very important in my life. In Syria, I've been working to support people who are more vulnerable, from the refugees from all over the world who were staying in Syria, as well as the Syrians. On my arrival to Turkey, I realized that these things should continue. And maybe one of the important things that I consider here is that me being in Turkey, we has so much gratitude to the way that we've been received. And it's like in our arrival, it was like such a beautiful country and like so much grateful people. So my question for you, Your Holiness, is that as a leader and with all this privilege, you've been in exile for that long, and with all this privilege that you have, how you were able to show your gratitude and to make sure to keep the relationship with the host community?
Syrian Padon Kone, and Syrian Aloita, Capture Moshuchi, together Rochata, and the Laga the Turkey and the Mutu Chevi, and Krag Swadelia, Turkey Nalo, so the Turkey Shungi, Kranta capture the Ine, Pando Shuchi, Gosuchi Puton, the Punsu, Lembre, it is about Betty Kran Delia, Kadijan and Chimpuchi, the Jambuchi, Capjonalia, Guru Shuchi, Shudan Jabre, into some about Chiki, Netangi, Jacobia, Pa.
I think in our case, perhaps something unique. Since the 8th century, Buddhism, particularly Nalanda tradition, is brought to Tibet, and I think very well established. Now today's world, the only Tibetan, we kept all the famous Nalanda sort of knowledge, we kept. So we have some special connection with India. Then, now for example, 1959, when I escaped from Tibet and reached India, in a way, refugee, we lost our own country. But anyway, we reach a country traditionally we Tibetan always respect. Like the Muslim world, Mecca is the real sort of city, spiritual center, something like that. India, Bodh Gaya, I think in the past it's a Tibetan. They try to one pilgrimage to Bodh Gaya once a life, like that. So then we reach this country, as a refugee. But then we really feel now we return to Indian, our original Kasoda, the spiritual land. And then also, so in our case, since '56, I came first time to India, and I developed a very good relation with Indian leaders, President Rajendra Prasad and Vice President Radhakrishna, and the Prime Minister Pandit Nehru, and many Gandhian and freedom fighter. We become very close friend. So, 1959, when we reach Indian border, the India ready to accept. And since then, I become longest guest of Indian government. So then people, public also, you see, I think wherever they settled, I think local Indian, very friendly and always welcome and appreciate, praising, like that. And our own people, disciplined, I think criminal. I think among the about 100,000 Tibetan, very few, very peaceful, more compassionate, hardworking. So, I think Tibetan refugee community is one of the most successful refugee community. And we also carrying the traditional knowledge. We re-establish the traditional monastic institution, which carry study Buddhist tradition in order to become, I think yesterday I mentioned, in order to become a good scholar, at least 30 years study. So, me, I think Tibetan, anyway, quite practical. Me, with the name of Dalai Lama, when ceremony, I sit on throne. But when lesson come, just ordinary monk student. And as I mentioned earlier, thread with weep, like that. So I also, you see, I think 13 years study. Then after become refugee, I continuously restudy these books. Very useful. We have 300 volumes, all translation from India. These we consider our text. So even these days, I always reading. Most of these books, of course, about 100 volume, Buddha's own word. Then about 200 volumes, the Nalendra masters. So as I mentioned earlier, they always say, because point out through reason. So wonderful. So we kept all these. Now today in South India, monastic institution re-established the number of monk students, over 10,000 monk students who studied these at least 20 years. And then also we start all nunnery, also should start serious study. So now, in the last few years, we already achieved the non-Kishin degree.
Nuns who have obtained like a PhD degree.
One story, when I thinking nunnery also should study similar monk study. So some my friend, they say, oh, any kishi kantichenos.
In the beginning, when His Holiness expressed the wish to have these nuns, becoming geishis or, like someone who has PhD degree, some of the elder monks were actually quite speculative about it. How can that be? So
then I told them, Buddha give us equal nuns, monks, bhikshu, bhikshuni, same rank. So now, for study also, we should be equal. So my reason more sort of weight, so they keep quiet.
We have a lot of women leaders here who are taking heart. Yeah.
So as you know, longest guest of Indian government, now my commitment is try to revival of ancient Indian knowledge, not through monastery, but through school, college, education. I have sort of conviction. India is the only nation who can combine modern education and ancient Indian education about mind. Over 3,000 years, India's concept of non-violence and compassion, karuna, ahimsa. So that now world need. So in order to show world these useful ancient Indian thought, firstly, within India should revive. So I fully committed. So many Indian institutions now very much appreciate. They fully support me. So that's my now latest on my commitment. I have 4 commitments. I think I already mentioned yesterday. Number 1 commitment, I consider I'm a human being, one of the 7 billion human beings. So try to promote basic human value. That's human compassion. Not touch with religion as an academic. So India's secular way, no differences, believer or non-believer. So long we are human being, we need inner peace. For that, we need some knowledge how to tackle our emotion. That's my number 1 commitment. That's basically number 1 commitment. And second commitment, I already mentioned, promotion of religious harmony. Then, one time in Delhi, some Muslim group, and including the Muslim countries' embassies, some people come, and we all discuss. And then at the end, we took pilgrimage to Jama Masjid, big Muslim temple. So we all together take pilgrimage. And they put me on white Muslim hat, yes. And then pray together with other Muslim friends. The next day, the newspaper with picture, a lot of sort of, report, like that. So, since 75, I start one practice wherever I go. If there is the different temple, church, Hindu temple, Sikh temple, Buddhist temple, and other Jewish temple, we always go pilgrimage. Then, second, you see from time to time, academic level, discuss with people from different tradition. So that's the way to promote religious harmony. So many, among my friend, many Muslims. So philosophical field is the differences, but we all practitioner of love, loving kindness. So no problem.
So, Your Holiness, Sebastian
Yes.
will follow.
So, good day, nice to meet you, Your Holiness. My name is Sebastian Huertas from Colombia. In 2016, the peace agreement started by the Nobel of Peace, Juan Manuel Santos. My country are divided in two. One country that believes in peace, another part doesn't believe in peace. So that's the reason because a lot of social leaders was killed like me. More or less 100 leaders are killed. So that's the reason because I want to be senator in Colombia in 2022, because for me it's the best way to continue the peace building in Colombia. So my question for you is, because you have the experience as a refugee to come into here, how do you promote the spiritual peace and reconciliation, not promoting hate to the Tibetan people?
Karsa.
Okay, so how do you promote the spiritual peace and reconciliation, no promoting hate as the Tibetan people?
So, because he wants to be a senator in Colombia to do the same.
Or difficult. I don't know. You should find ways and means to overcome that. I think the violence, basically, no proper reason. Violence is instrument of anger. No proper base. Think more, it becomes weak. So non-violence is peace. Peace related with compassion, the sufficient reason. I think now today's world, I think generally speaking, everywhere people really, I think, fed up violence. So only question of time. You should not lose your determination. Keep determination and more information. If possible, this kind of meeting in your own country, and then I think time passes. I think things will change, certainly.
So,
for example, my own case, when we decide not seeking independence, so some people criticize. Now gradually, I think many Tibetans, I think, fully understand we are not seeking independence, separation. Emotionally, we want independence. And now here, one important is, according Chinese history book. So some scholar, Chinese, I know some of them. You see, they told me 7th century, 8th century, 9th century, 3 independent countries, China, Mongolia, Tibet. And then in Chinese ancient history book, they never mention Tibet part of China. They say, but okay, past is past. So we have some unique cultural heritage. I already mentioned, I think, yesterday. So it's even sort of benefit to Chinese brothers, sisters to keep this tradition. Then okay.
So
So we always keep our determination. So originally, some young Tibetans criticized me. Then gradually, they understand my way of sort of approach. And then our elected political leaders also fully support now following that way, that path, not seeking independence, but some mutual benefit like that. Okay.
Achu.
Thank you, Your Holiness. It's a great opportunity for me to have this chance to sit next to you and talk to you. I come from South Sudan, and I don't see one element that has shaped me in a way or another. I see a set, a component of many things that made me the person I am today. So I grew up in Sudan, and it's a very complex country. It has been the biggest country in Africa. And we have African people who look like me with Afro hair, kinky, and we also have Arabs. We have Muslims and Christians. And through that, I faced a lot of discrimination, violence. And it got to some extent that I faced domestic violence, even from people I know within my family. However, I was always asking myself, why? Because you said we should ask ourselves why always. But every time I ask why, I'm considered to be a rebel. Because I want to know, why is this person oppressing me? Why is this person rejecting me? And this developed in me self-resilience. I always wanted to do what they told me not to do. And I grew up like that. So I went to university and I had to cover up everything, although I'm Christian, but I covered it up because of Islam, Sharia law. It went like that. Through university, I faced another type of conflict, which was me being a woman. So I wanted to lead my students. I went for election to become their student president, but they did not vote for me because I'm a woman. And I was also very young by then, I think at the age of 18. I did not give up, so the next year I changed my strategies and I won. Yeah, and this also gave me hope. So now me and some other colleagues, we work on how to promote women's education, because I believe education helped me a lot, not to hate the people who oppressed me and rejected me. Then we moved to South Sudan, and it was even more complicated, because my own people, the South Sudanese, now discriminate against me coming from Sudan, because they were fighting with the Sudanese. And this has created self-conflict in me. So I relate to Sudanese people, and I also relate to South Sudanese people. In all that, my mother gave me so much force, and she's the reason behind my strength. I'm very passionate and compassionate because of the love I saw in her. And in one of your videos, I saw how, when you were so young, how you used to run when the 3 leaders came to your house and you were hiding behind your mom's scene. So I want you to tell me what's the role of women into shaping you, becoming the person you are today, apart from your mother. And also you mentioned that one of your BBC interviews, you said maybe the next Dalai Lama will be a woman. Mm-hmm. So I want you to tell me the impact of this on the Tibetan community and how this might cause conflict or change your history. Yeah, thank you.
Karsa.
체유세의 계신 부수지 문제지 규례의 신앙되다리야 야지 뭐라도 밀고 체슈디 안에 직 소금적으로 인지적으로 해야 돼 뭐를 미제나리아 슈주 주겐테 좀 아니 뭐래 경물음지 내 세번째 디시두선 받아 경물음지 구제 나월이야 아니 규례의 슈게 가서다 가대 총료래 가서다 고지된데 이게 저나다 타변하리야 아니 규례의 슈게 가대 때 모임 많이인데 아니 규례의 슈게 가대 총료라 아니 지금 다들 BBC 디나리아 대가나데 아니야 규례 지도리아 슈게 가지고래 아니 경물음지다 더블 주의
Yesterday, I already, I think, mentioned we 7 billion human beings on this planet. We really need effort to promote basic human value. That is human compassion. It can be possible because basic human nature, we are a social animal. So basic human nature is more compassionate, just according to scientists. I think next few days I'm going to meet the Richard Davidson, the specialist about the brain. Now I want to suggest to him, I think he should carry more research work, compassionate mind, how much sort of affect our brain, anger, how harmful our brain. This is not a religious matter, but our health. So, my number one commitment, as I mentioned earlier, is the promotion of this basic human value. I believe basic human nature is more compassionate. Therefore, it is possible. The only thing, as I mentioned earlier yesterday, existing education, no bother about our internal emotions. So female now should take more sort of effort for promotion of compassionate society. Then I always believe mother is first our teacher. In my case, my mother is the key person who practical level showed me compassion. So sometimes, my mother's sort of compassion a little bit spoiled me. I think I mentioned the reason my area, very small village, and then of course no toys, nothing. So my mother always carried me wherever my mother go, or milking animal, or because of look after, because of farm work. My mother always carried me. So eventually I found very comfortable on my mother's shoulder. So then I become little bolder. So I hold my mother's 2 ear if I want to go this side. If go this side. If mother not sort of follow my instruction, then I shout. So my mother too kind, so that boy a little bit spoiled. But I always was telling people, first my teacher about compassion is my mother. That is very clear. No? I think everywhere, even animal, mother take care till their youngster become independent. Otherwise, you say, birds or dogs or any animal like that. So therefore, the mother is the symbol of loving kindness. So a female should not, you see, involve only concern family level, but look society, try to promote this deeper human value. Okay. And
So,
oh yes. So one time in Paris, one female magazine, they asked me, in future, Dalai Lama can be female. Then I mentioned, oh yes, of course. Is the female more sort of useful, female Dalai Lama? Then certainly, female Dalai Lama. Then as far as the Dalai Lama institution is concerned, I think as early as 69, right? I think 69, my statement, I mentioned whether Dalai Lama institution should continue or not up to Tibetan people. It's not important. The important is learning. Knowledge is more important than just the institution. In the feudal system, old time, yes, institution is something important. Dalai Lama institution also related with that. So now not much important. The important is study, student. Now, as I mentioned earlier, over 10,000 students study. So these people, now, firstly, no Buddha's institution. Many of Nalanda masters, they have no institution. I think reincarnation, recognized as a sort of previous person, and then institution started, I think, in Tibet, because of the feudal system, I feel. So future Dalai Lama institution should continue or not. Concerned people, including Mongolian, and I think mainly Mongolian. The very word Dalai Lama, Dalai, Mongolian word. So if they sort of withdraw their support, and then I cannot sign signature Dalai Lama, Dalai Lama, Dalai Lama. So some special connection, Mongolian and Tibet. So they also have the sort of historically some right about Dalai Lama institution or reincarnation. So now regarding Dalai Lama reincarnation, I think next month, some highest Tibetan Lama or spiritual leaders, we're going to have some gathering or meeting. So at the previous time, I suggested, so when my age reach around 90, then I will convene the spiritual leaders. Then let them discuss about future Dharma institution and reincarnation. But theoretically, the female reincarnation, very possible if the circumstances more, as I mentioned earlier, more sort of effort from female side for promotion of human compassion, then female Dalai Lama. Firstly, Dalai Lama institution should continue. Then the successor of Dalai Lama institution open whether or traditional way to choose reincarnation or His Holiness Pope's sort of tradition among the high cardinal and elected. That's also possible. So there are some different options, yes, like that. So future Dalai Lama, not my concern. That's the concern of people. You see, they will decide. My own concern is my next life should be, as first Dalai Lama expressed, he no wish to born heaven, but place more suffering there, and where he can serve something, he always want to born such sort of place. So me also, they are not something high institution like that, but one human being who can serve more people. That's so long space remain, so long sentient beings remain, I will remain in order to serve. Okay.
We have two final questions, so
Yes.
we'll take both of them together. And I know we're getting close to lunch, so.
So, Your Holiness, when I was, like my mother taught me how you should be a value-driven person, and while I was growing up, I also realized how it feels to lose someone. So, I started an organization where I teach values like empathy, inclusiveness, non-violence to youth, to children, and to teachers. Because I was following what my mother told me to be value-driven, but I faced a lot of violence, I faced a lot of criticism, I faced a lot of I used to question myself, if I am value-driven, what difference I am making? So I thought one person cannot make a difference. Like one person is value-driven but cannot make a difference. Everyone needs to have those values. So I have, I went to Kashmir, worked with the youth there. Their stories were very depressing, like the kind of conditions they are staying in. I also work with Rohingya refugee. They used to show the videos from Burma where their family members, like a pregnant woman, her stomach was, they took out the baby, killed the baby, and then killed the mother. So they used to question me that you want us to be value-driven, you want us to be compassionate. Why? So, Holiness, my question is to you that you also, people come to you and ask such problems, such issues from you. What gives you energy to move forward, wake up every day with the same energy?
Yeah, thank you.
린다한테 계층부를 수수선물 린다 계층부를 쓰고 또 이내 미치기 선물 린다 여기 미신다 주긴 때문에 미신다 그 선날에 린다한테 레버지 쏘고 그래서 이번에 다 동해들이 막고 싶어서 마야마 아니 간주들이 파시아가 재밌네 간주들이 그냥 양사를 다 린다스를 가르치기 위해서 지금 경고를 제가 장애들이다 수수 동해들이 막고 싶고요 이도 좀 맞지 경고를 지 특수 마냐부터 무투제 찰렌드 나토야 돼.
But Calden, let's take bar ones as well.